Hey guys, this is a little different than maybe what you're used to, because today we are we already kicked it off, but we're kind of diving into this idea that I know we were both excited about, the Inklings, which is kind of our writing discussion. Um, and so if you tuned in during December when we first did it, we talked about our stories. And obviously, we'll talk more about those later down the line. But today, we had a little bit of time. So we're going to actually talk about something else that we really like to write, which is poetry. We both have a couple of poems that we've wanted to share with you guys, as well as the inspiration behind them, all of that stuff. And so we're going to just kind of get right into it, unless, Brandon, you have anything to
I'll
add.
just add something a little too. So obviously the overlay is going to be a little bit different. So I'll work on getting an overlay for the Inklings. I think it'll be kind of its own series kind of thing. Um, and kind of the idea behind some of the things we were thinking about doing is almost have it be almost a workshop based where we can be like, hey, how do I create a character? And then we can go into like how we can create a character. One of my ideas that I haven't told him yet, so he gets to learn now, is I was thinking we could even write a short story together and try to also walk you along some of the processes that we go through as we're writing some of our stories.
I love it. It's
As
a great
flies
idea.
go into his mouth.
There's no flies in here. It's January.
Yeah, that's true. Just mice.
Yeah,
You wouldn't want one of those in your mouth.
too late. All right, we're gonna kick it off. Do you want to start? Do you want me to start?
How about you start?
Start. All right.
So
Um,
this is, like we said, impromptu.
Very impromptu. I mean, we literally finished filming our last episode, and we were like, we still have some time, so spur of the moment. Bear with us. So I have two poems that I wanted to share. The first is actually tied to my story. It actually prefaces the third act of the book, and the poem shares its name with the third act of the book, and it is titled "The Music at the Ends of Shadows," or "At the End of Shadows," whatever. So, like I said, it's inspired by specifically the final act of the book, and is intended to kind of describe the experiences and the growth of the main protagonist, Silas, who, if you tuned into the last Inklings where we discussed my story, Silas is the main character, and he's got a lot going on in his life, and none of it's really all that great. And so this is kind of very representative of where he's going and what he's already grown into. So this is the music at the ends of shadows. By this old hearth I sit, watching as an aged gray smoke ventures into the cerulean empyrean, twirling in a graceful pirouette among the descent of winter snow, and admiring a nightfall that is quilted beneath the soft light of a silver moon and an ecclesia of stars. How I long for the deep and whispered magic that sleeps beyond the gate of marigold gleam, dreaming of castles weathered and worn by the lazuli waves of a lonesome shore. How I remember the whimsies that waltzed among hill and dale, and the glistening wood and glade buried beneath the red and gold of a dawn's lament. I still hear the dwindling patter of rain, like a song of unspoken spells, haunted and hallowed, endlessly pursuing the jeweled pathways of the sky-devouring serpents. And in the cradle of these valleys that were writ beneath cloud and gale, I bellow into the darkling void a fragile shout, hoping the ghosts will hear my plea and cling to the old marvels and magics found in the mists of the music at the ends of shadows. So obviously very poetic. Like I said, there's deeper purpose there with the character of Silas, but how I have it set up in the actual book is it's a song from this world. So it's like an old, folk song that they would sing, which I thought was just really cool and kind of fun.
Making me almost want to put the one that I have as my story
Did
one.
I just inspire Brandon.
What? Well, I have one.
Yeah, I know.
It's right here.
Yeah, is that one you want to share? Or?
I wasn't planning on it, but I mean, I can.
I
So, I mean, mine as well. I mean, if you went that way, I guess I'll go that way. Yours has much more poetic nature. Mine is based on like a nursery rhyme
like that actually a lot. That's cool.
that you would have, and it's again a song.
Can I ask a question before you start? Is it based on a nursery rhyme from our world or a nursery
No,
rhyme in
it's
this
a
world?
nursery rhyme in their world.
Okay. See, that's really cool. I like that a lot.
So it's nature based. So you'll kind of see it, and it's called "As the Rain Falls."
Okay.
And to give a context, when this poem is kind of done, this was like the poem that the main character's mother would have sang.
Beautiful. Love it.
As things were happening, like it was storming outside, different things like that would happen. So, a little bit of context. Yeah. So here it is. It's pretty short, as most nursery rhymes are. But yeah, it goes like this. So, as the rain falls, pouring from the heavens above, a soothing harmony trickles down to the ground below. Though the rain may fall and dampen the earth, its rejuvenating breath bestows life into whom partake. Falling afresh against the grassy plains, against the sighing bluffs that echo, it is the sound of the rain, echoing both the silence of melancholy and renewal of being. It is the sound of a heartbeat. Oh, I completely skipped an entire stanza. Never mind. We'll go back.
That was my rewind sound.
I just completely bypassed an entire line. Okay.
It's all right. It never happened. I don't remember it.
Rewind. So, and to whom partake. So let's go back to. And you know what? I'll just start the whole thing over. I just messed up my own thing. It's fine. So, as the rain falls, pouring from the heavens above, a soothing harmony trickles down to the ground below. Though the rain may fall and dampen the earth, its rejuvenating breath bestows life unto whom partake. Falling afresh against the grassy plains, against the sighing bluffs that echo, earth's soothing drone symphony. To my wandering thoughts, there is something I cannot forget. It is the song of the rain, echoing both the silence of melancholy and renewal of being. That's the correct way to say it. It is the sound of a heartbeat, the sound of the earth as she cries out, both in joy and in sorrow. Like tears, it washes away the pains of yesterday, the fear and doubt that stifle, and the trials that never seem to disappear. The air smells fresh as the storm blows past. The calm overwhelms, giving way to tranquility and peace. To my wandering thoughts, there is something I cannot forget. It is the song of the rain, echoing both the silence of melancholy and renewal of being. A blessing in disguise, a tale of a journey's end.
I love that. So based on a nursery rhyme.
Obviously, some nursery rhymes won't have that quite the lingo
Sure.
in the diction in it.
kind of where I was kind of leading with my question is, where in your story does this take place? Is it like the preface of a chapter? Is it the beginning of the book?
It's when the character's in the underground.
Okay.
So in the underground passage,
Which
is
shared
very
a little
little bit of that mysterious.
Mm-hmm.
What is this? Kind of trapped, and it's kind of the rhythmic pattern of the drops from the ceiling.
Okay.
In the underground.
Very cool.
That kind of reminds the character of this rhyme.
Mm-hmm.
Of a mother's face that she can't picture, of different things like that were sung.
That's cool.
It just comes to mind. And it's kind of like a soothing,
almost a comfort and
a comforting thing in the unknown, and in a place where there's a lot of stuff happening that we don't understand what's going
on. Yeah, like I said, this is super impromptu, so I guess I'll just get into my next one. And this is the other one that I really wanted to share. obviously, the other one is very personal to me in the sense that it's related to my story, so it's kind of my baby, and I love it. But this one is much more personal to me because it exemplifies a part of my personality that I'm not always happy with. And so about a year ago, I had this idea to kind of write a series of poems called The Portraits. And they would basically be different aspects of me. Um, Suffice it to say, I only wrote one of them.
He's got only one portrait. He's right here.
um, and I'll just tell you the title because I feel like that'll do justice to it quite a bit more than maybe I could ever. It's called The Portrait of Doubt. So something that I really haven't shared too much about me is I have really always struggled with this image of self-doubt. With this feeling of falling short and disappointing myself and others. And it's something that has consistently left me angry, frustrated, and irritated and anxious and vulnerable, all of those things. And so kind of writing this was a way for me to kind of just get that all out on paper. It's kind of a way for me to just basically say, we've all got our monsters, right? That we all have to kind of deal with and wrestle with and face. And for me, doubt has been the one that has frightened me the most. And so I'll just kind of read it. So this is The Portrait of Doubt. And it's kind of written almost like a letter, or even a conversation, however you want to picture it. My dearest Doubt, you call to me with the chattering thralls of your voice, and in a pale, empty light you beckon this moth to your flame. You ensnare me, adorn me in shadows, and chain me amid the mists of wintry haze. You, a master of your craft, have forged yourself a prisoner, a beggar in the halls of his own castle. It is a weeping of ink that forms these words. You batter and bruise me, play me like a glass marionette upon your stage, and as I beg for peace, you shatter me against the stone of your will. My dearest Doubt, we all have monsters, but why do you wish to break me so? My dearest Doubt, you are the ghost behind my eyes, the rain from my lips, and the oil in my soul. I am the ragamuffin and ragged you have left me. That's it. But yeah, like I said, just kind of a personal. This is an aspect of it, and obviously there was going to be other portraits, and they were going to get more like joyful as they went. Never happened.
Just leave it at. Oh, it's just depressing. Okay, awesome.
Okay, Brandon, you next.
So speaking to the, so something that because what I was trying to do for some time is I was trying to do different aspects of poetry.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that be haiku or different things like that. Because often I write a lot of prose.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just a lot of prose poems and things like that. So this one that I'm going to share is a eulogy.
Interesting. Can you give a little inspiration, or inspiration is not the word? Why a eulogy? Or is that going to become apparent when you read it?
Not necessarily. Like, there's a lot of people that often think of death.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of what awaits beyond it. But for those who are left behind.
Yeah.
And I guess that was kind of the inspiration before it. I kind of wrote it as there was a funeral going on. Kind of where I was at. I didn't attend the funeral or anything like that, but it kind of reminded me of the funerals I've been a part of, for family and the like, and it kind of just came to mind. Um, and I've even had a couple of people that have come to me and saying I would like this read at my funeral, which I guess that's kind of encouraging. I mean, I don't know, it's a funeral, so it's like okay. So it's called Song of the Departed. It's a eulogy. So sadness, regret, painful despair over relations beyond repair. There was always a better future they could have easily imagined, where they could be at ease, leaving their loved ones that it ever be. Hopeful, melancholy, people glad, just for their time on earth to come to an end. Such vain tragedy to beautiful, fruitful melody. Keeping watch as their loved ones live on, their lives ever flickering as embers, glowing ablaze in the dark of night. Soulful wills carried by those who remain, an urn that stays alight. Mournful whispers carry out a melodious symphony against life's yet bitter cacophony. Dead may be the body, but life yet revels in the remnants of an old fruits harvesting field. From death comes life, like a seed planted on volcanic ground. From where did that seed come from? It came from that which was dead and gone, only to be brought to life again in ages to come. What blissful hope for those dead who mourn, what could have been to what will come to pass.
Um, I had a question. Where did it go? So I already kind of asked you why eulogy. And so I'm going to kind of shift the conversation to something a little broader, because we've got time, but we are running short. So as you kind of work on poetry, because I see you scrolling through your Google Doc there, you've got quite a few. What would you say is like the major draw towards the genre of poetry? What over other things?
I think for me, it's a way to kind of get what's on my mind on paper. And often I find that I place there's a lot of hopeful messages in things that could be maybe construed as like negative.
Sure.
For the eulogy and specifically, there's often a lot of faith related twists to a lot of my poetry that I find. And some of them are born out of frustration or different things that I've gone through. There is not like a particular theme that I've had for some of them. They just kind of come spur of the moment.
Sure.
I'll just put them down. Some of them that I have in here, I actually wrote during seminary. Some on purpose and some not on purpose.
Sure.
Like one of them that's called Ceaseless Prayer is literally, it was my response, but it was very poetic in its way of sounding. So I just and it's a poem now. So I'm not going to share that one, but I will share one that I did make for seminary, but it's more of the on purpose poetry. And kind of walks through, again, kind of a biblical narrative.
Yeah.
Different things like that. So obviously there's that flavor to it. And then obviously I have haikus. A couple of those are also faith related, but then there's some of them that are very that doesn't sound pleasant. I'll just share it because haikus are small.
Yeah.
So one that I was planning on sharing anyway. was one. Obviously, my haikus don't have titles; they're just haikus. So this one's white water crashing, clawing and gasping for breath, deep water swallow. Doesn't particularly inspire. That's a good feeling right there.
Mm-hmm.
It almost sounds, depressing,
Yeah.
or the epitome of it.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like, I mean, obviously, I think you're describing drowning. It's
Yeah.
kind of the vibe. But what I really like about poetry is how, and really, you can make this argument for really any form of art because it's subjective, right? But I feel like, especially with poetry, because of how it's worded and how flowy and, for a lack of better words, poetic it is, that meaning there could be layers to that meaning. So, oh, it's about drowning. You're kind of describing what it would be like to drown in water, but what does it look like? My mind goes to kind of mental, and emotional suffering, and I think how it feels to drown in that.
Yeah.
So there's layers to it.
Like,
there's so much more.
So a lot of the haikus, for example, I tried to layer.
Yeah.
There's several layers to a lot of the haikus I have. And then I have a couple that are just, it's funny. So I went with it. Chicken and the egg. Let's make one on that. But yeah. And then one that I wanted to share before we close up here. It's a bit of a longer one. It's called The Meaning of Life. So this is the one of them from seminary. So I will go. I can't even remember really what we were talking about. I think we were talking about, the meaning of life, or grace, or something like that. But anyway, I'll get into it. So often we wonder about life's ever stream, the meaning of it all, why we exist and remain here to toil. Why is it that we stroke the flames of life's deepest questions that we cannot just simply answer? When did it begin? When did it end? Where did this never-ending story find its wake? From nothing came forth life, out of a single spark, setting all of existence in motion. The sun, the moon, the birds, the trees, the bears, the bees, humanity. From dust we were molded, as a relationship unfolded, upon the breath of life granted. Adam and Eve, communing with God, in the bosom of Eden's splendor. Laughter began between created and creator. What changed? What changed when the forbidden fruit was partaken? Sinful burdens, guilt, regret, despair. From it comes toil, trying to cultivate thorny, dying soil. Years go by. God has never changed. His heart pained as contact with him was strained. Jesus was sent out as atonement for humanity, a ransom for many, held captive by sin's deathly grasp. Freedom he bought from his life outstretched, a crown of thorns laid upon his head. How was this sin bought out? Its bail was set against all humanity. Only one who was sinless could achieve such a feat. Forgiveness pardoned sin's embrace. Pure blood averted humanity's severed connection between the created and the creator. Jesus, grace personified, from whom we are justified, through whom we are given the tools to become sanctified. Prayer, deep connection and conversation, communion of being unified in both body and mind with Jesus, meditation of his truth written down till the ages of ages. Freely given, anyone can accept, or they can choose to resist. Nothing denies them the freedom to choose, the freedom to live in the comfort they have always known. With these tools, we continue our toil, stripping the land bare of its thorny brush and prickly briar. From the land we till the soil, plant the seeds and water from an everlasting spring filled with life's effervescence. Our life's work to rebuild Eden, so that we may come to walk hand in hand with God once more. By these tools of grace, we harvest crops anew as an offering of thanks, as evidence of the Creator through us. We toil, not in hopes of earning, but in hopes of restoring a garden that was lost, a haven of love. Closer in proximity, we find us and God of the same mind, sharing his love and the message of grace from here till we find the grave. We serve as his hands and feet to everyone in need, wholly living as the Spirit leads. As our lives come to an end, we wonder if there was enough. Enough we did, fearing as though we didn't do all that was asked of us. Our life song is the melody that is played upon our death. How rich will it be, or will it be filled with melancholy? What does it mean to be saved? Is holy living enough? What is the meaning of God's gifted grace? What lies for us in the thereafter? Heaven and hell, life and death, constant communion, devoid connection. How bright does God's light shine through the cracks of our facades? Do we toil endlessly without fruit, or does our life song invite a divine smile? Obviously, it's more catered to a more of a seminary kind of thing.
But I think that's another like incredible aspect of poetry, in the sense that yes, I mean it's very explicitly faith-based, but you don't lose that poetic sense, even with that, and I think that's really cool. And it kind of reminded me of one that I wrote, and it'll be the last one that I share, too, because I think we have time and it's really short. Oh, I just lost it. So the problem is I post all of mine, or quite a few of them, on my social media. But this was from years ago, so I just gotta scroll real quick, and there's not really a.
That's why I put mine on my Google Doc.
The ones that I had on Instagram were really easy because I got the picture that has the title. This one is just a block of text. But as I'm looking, I'll kind of give some image to it because. So I wrote it back in, I believe it was 2018, around the Christmas season. And I was kind of at the time reflecting on the warmth of family and home. But as I was writing it, it almost tells the story of the prodigal son in a way. You see kind of that in there. And as soon as I find it, you'll know what I mean. But now I think I might have missed it. Yeah. There it is. Okay, so this one it's really short. And it is very simply titled Home. And you'll tell that I wrote it around Christmas time because of the imagery. As the gentle snow falls from
Totally summer.
Yeah.
Talking right there.
Wrote this in July.
Yeah.
As the gentle
Christmas in July.
that didn't even click with me. That's brilliant. In Christmas in July, no. As the gentle snow falls from a haunted night sky that is filled so greatly with stars hung by twine, the ephemeral, weary whisper soars in the wind like birds among a hallowed clear. Lonesome prodigal, may you lay your sorrows at the door of these bricks where memories reside. Come to the edge of the ember's song, your joyful calls of kindred soul. Trade your rucksack and your scars for roots among the swaddled tree, and fill the cracks that began to show. And leave the old days in the frigid winter snow. Lay your chains at the door, for you are bound no more. For as the dusk begins to settle, the dawn begins to sing, welcome home, we've been waiting. And so obviously, I mean, you've got the explicit use of the word prodigal, in the sense that, oh, this person has been away, they're coming back. But you see that little bit of that faith-based element in drawing in that parable, kind of in a poetic sense. But
Yeah, yours was more subtle, I think.
Right.
Mine was obviously
well, you
geared
wrote it
toward
for
that, but I
seminary.
also wrote it for seminary,
Yeah.
so obviously there's a
But I like I said earlier,
obvious thing there.
that's what's so cool about poetry, is you can be explicit with your messaging, you can be subtle with your messaging, but it still has this really cool flow and an elegance to it. Regardless, it's not just I've got a message that I want to share with you, and I'm gonna be very blunt about it. It's I've got a message, and it's very apparent what that is, but there's still an elegance to it, in the way it's described. And I think you did a really good job with that.
I definitely utilize repetition.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that repeated.
Which is something you don't want to do in like a story.
Yeah.
But in poetry, it's again, I mean, and I think that's why I like it so much is the conventions that you would use in, writing a novel, you can throw out the window for the most part with poetry. It's just like, I want to write a word upside down. It's called poetry, dude.
Like, one of my favorite poems to write are acrostic poems.
Can you describe what that is?
For those who don't know what acrostic is, so you have, say, a word called Frank. Like, I don't know, let's be frank. It's Frank. So basically, with the lines of the poem, for each line that you would have, you would start with basically like the word with the letter of what you have there. So, for example, with Frank, the first line could start with like first. The second line could start with rambunctious.
Okay.
And so on and so forth.
It's acrostic.
It's acrostic. For me, some people do acrostics. They're just like one word or whatever, just all the way down. For me, I do lines. So there's like, you talk about one thing, you go to the next line, you talk about another thing, go to the next. And it's all talking about one thing, which is usually what the title is, which is what the acrostic is. So there's that. Obviously, you can be creative in how you do it. Like, for example, I was just randomly doing acrostic poems one day, and I was at my internship in Fremont, like a couple years back, and I basically told someone, like, what's something that you would like a poem of? Just give me a random thing. They're like, a clover. I'm like, okay. 4-leaf, 3-leaf. What kind of clover? A clover. Okay. So then clover became an acrostic poem of mine, and just gives you a little bit of challenge. I'm like, what am I going to do with V?
You know what would be really fun? You take a crossword, or what are they called? It's not crossword puzzle, but the where you're finding the words in like the jumble of letters. What's that called? It's lost on me.
Shoot.
We're gonna spend the last 7 minutes talking.
No,
about this. But no, if people can remember what that is, it's lost on me at the moment, and I'm gonna remember it, and I'm gonna feel like an idiot. But you take one of those diagonal words, and then that whatever it is, lamp, that's your acrostic poem, and you have to do it as a diagonal in the poem, like.
Yeah.
That might be horrible.
Because I know there's some people that like do some of the poems and they like make the words out to like be a shape of something. Like they make it like a shape of a fish or different things like that.
And then, if it's in the shape of a fish, it has nothing to do with like with fish. It's like, this is about cardboard, like.
Yeah, so I mean, some of those I think we could also do on something like the Inklings, which is what this will be. Ignore the thing on the bottom here. It'll change.
And if it doesn't,
Well, then I must not have gotten time.
He's busy. He's busy.
So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to kind of go. Obviously, this was more of an impromptu
Right.
kind of video.
We had absolutely zero preparation.
So you might gather that we didn't have a whole lot of preparation.
Like I said in the beginning, we literally finished filming something for Discovering Eden, and we're like, we still have some time. Let's throw something together. So this is really thrown together. It won't be necessarily that in the future, but we wanted to get something
I
together.
think we'll have more of an idea of kind of some of the structure behind
Sure.
some of what we're gonna do. I personally would like to do like a short story kind of
that'd be kinda
collaboration,
fun.
which would be awesome. Have some action in there, some like
We
dialogue.
each get to write. Each of us write every other paragraph.
No, it's every other word.
The
End. Wow, that's the shortest. That's the shortest story ever. The end. Period.
but yeah, I mean, you'll see more structure with the Inklings in the future, just like how you see more structure with Discovering Eden. This was just impromptu, and we thought it'd be fun. I had fun with it. Hopefully you guys had fun with it. Hopefully Brandon had fun with it.
Yeah, and obviously we have different things that we've written down over the years, so we can get into some of that as well.
Yeah.
But I think it would be awesome if we could come up and kind of create stuff alongside each other and alongside you guys, as you can see it as well, to kind of see how like you get the wheels turning, or what can you get to inspire some of these things. So that's some of the things to look forward to in the Inklings. So we'll catch you
On the flippity flop. I cut him off.
You know what? Flip flop.